it's Nikki here. I'm here today to do my top 10 favorite reads of 2020 video. Not all of these came out in 2020. In fact, I think most of them did not come out in 2020, but there are a few did, so I'm ahead of where I was last year with this kind of video. I will give you the genre of the book, a brief summary, and I might skip that if I've talked about the book a bajillion times. I'm going to start at my 10th favorite book, and kind of like books 5 through 10, so like the bottom 6 are really interchangeable, and then first, second, third, and fourth favorite books are all in order. So, starting with the 10th book, it is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. It's a mystery thriller, and you get multiple point of views. You get kind of like this interesting, almost sci-fi way of solving what's going on. And you're jumping around trying to figure out, as the title suggests, the death of Evelyn Hardcastle. I super enjoyed it, and it was my favorite mystery thriller book I read this year, even if it didn't make the top of the list here. My 9th favorite book this year was Jurassic Park. Of course, this was a reread. However, this science fiction thriller, almost thriller book really, science fiction, written by Michael Crichton. It came out in like 1990, I believe. And it's the same as premise as the movie. A few things happen a little bit differently, but I think it's to the benefit of the story. And if you enjoyed the movie and haven't read the book, I highly recommend the book. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. Number 8 on my list is Salt to the Sea by Rita Sepetys. This is a historical fiction. I really enjoyed the multiple perspectives, the slightly different setting of World War II, one that you hadn't seen as much, more of the refugee side on the continent. And I really love the way the stories wove together, and the way the characters got to know, developed relationships. It was beautiful. I highly recommend this if you enjoy historical fiction, especially if you want to read from a more YA perspective. My 7th favorite book this year is Midnight in Chernobyl by Adam Higginbotham. It is nonfiction about what happened at Chernobyl. It's a very recent read for me. I read it maybe a month ago or so. And I'm still thinking about the situation and how everything went down, and just the author framed everything really well. While he pointed out where errors were made, he didn't necessarily lay bundles of blame at people's feet. He really just did a good job of telling the story. And I was just really, really impressed with how he went about it, and the information that was given, and just how it was presented to the reader. Number 6 is The Martian by Andy Weir. This is a sci-fi book. As most of you know, it's about a man who was abandoned on Mars, and he is surviving until rescue comes. I personally really enjoyed the format where it was entry or log, it was entry-based logs that was telling the story. Personally, I really enjoy that kind of storytelling. However, I know it's not for everybody, and I know a lot of people didn't enjoy the way it was written. So tread carefully if you're going to pick this one up. Although I do highly recommend it, you're going to struggle with it if you don't enjoy that entry-based style writing. Number 5 on my list is Recursion by Blake Crouch. This was a science fiction thriller I picked up this year. It was part of my Goodreads challenge, and I believe it was the winner in its category. And having read it now, I 100% see why. It was amazing. It was fast-paced, it had interesting, intelligent characters. The storytelling was just really, really spot on. It was quick-paced. It was a fast read because I didn't want to put it down because things were constantly happening, and I constantly wanted to find out what was going to happen next and how the issue was going to be solved. It was brilliant. And that is the bottom half of my top 10 list. Those, like I said, didn't have any specific order, but now we're going to get into the top 4 books, and these ones are in order. My 4th favorite read this year was The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis. It's historical fiction. You have a main character who is kind of living a certain kind of life, that kind of American dream of 2 kids, a husband. She's working. She's a stay-at-home mother. He's working. The twist is they're living in like the director suite in a museum or a library. And this point of view is paired with the granddaughter of the woman in the first point of view. I really liked the family connection. I liked the way the stories were stacking up. And I really appreciated how everything came together at the end. It was tidy, but not like overly convenient. And you bounced between the 2 different perspectives of these women. One who is struggling to kind of deal with the past of her family while moving forward, and then this other woman who is struggling to find herself and in her role where she is and reconciling with what she's wanting. And honestly, this is the newest Fiona Davis book to come out, and immediately after finishing it, I went in and put all of her other books on hold because I wanted to read them, and then I binged those. So really, really great, and I'm so glad there was so much more material out of hers to read. The third best book I read this year is The Book of Lost Names by Kristen Harmel. This is another historical fiction. It is about a woman who grew up in Paris and stayed in France during the Nazi occupation, and kind of talking about her role, what she did, and the book bounces between her perspective on both during the war and in current day. I really enjoyed this because it showcased some of the really important stuff that was happening on the continent during World War II, and I just really loved that you had this strong woman who was using her skills to the best of her ability to do this. And it was really awesome to see the struggle, how she dealt with the struggles moving forward. It was really well framed. It was very well written. And the Book of Lost Names just ends up being something that's so sweet and heartwarming that this entire story just sucked me right in, and I enjoyed every second of the read. I highly recommend this if you enjoy historical fiction with strong female leads and during World War II. My second favorite book I read this year, you can actually see on my shelf down by my elbow there, and it is The Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. It is a first contact with alien science fiction book, and I just don't even know how to summarize it. Like, there's twists and turns that you don't expect, but it's so interesting. Like, there's a little bit in the middle that's a bit of a slog, but everything else about the book is so good that I gave it 5 stars. It's hands down the best science fiction I read this year. And I won't say too much more than that because I think I mentioned it several times on this channel already. And then, for me, the best book I read this year was Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. It's fantasy. You deal with like these deep loving friendships, but it's also weird and fun, and it reads like a group of friends are playing a D&D campaign, and I know a lot of people have also made that same parallel, and while some people hate it, I personally loved it because I can just see what exists between friends that would end up result in certain situations occurring, and just while other situations I can see occurring because it's like, ooh, you rolled a 1, critical failure time, and I still think about that book every day, and it stuck with me so much. I picked up the sequel. It wasn't as good, but it was still good, so I'm waiting on tenterhooks for the 3rd, and in the meantime, I think I'm gonna have to actually buy a copy of this book for myself, because the copy I read was from the library, and I want to read it again. And that's it for my top 10 favorites of the year. If you agree with me on any of these books, comment below. if you don't agree with me on any of these books, comment below. Tell me why. I want to talk to you guys about books. That's why I started this channel, and I realized I haven't been interacting with you enough through the camera. And so with that, I will end the video here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.